here's something about how we talk about television that genuinely bothers me. The same 12 shows get mentioned in every conversation. Breaking Bad, The Wire, Succession, brilliant shows, all of them. But the conversation stops there, over and over, while dozens of series just as good, sometimes better, sit quietly on streaming platforms getting a fraction of the audience they deserve. I've done the digging. Today, 15 incredible TV shows better than anything you're currently watching. A show where J.K. Simmons plays two versions of the same man, living in parallel realities that have started, quietly and dangerously, to bleed into each other. A show about the birth of the pornography industry in 1970s Times Square, from the creator of The Wire, that's just as sociologically ambitious as anything he's ever made. And a show that spans one multi-generational epic that critics have called one of the most beautifully constructed pieces of television ever made. 15 shows, ranked. Let's go! Number 15. Banshee. Let me start with the one that's purely, unapologetically fun.
I do solemnly swear that I will faithfully perform the duties of Banshee County Sheriff, the office of which I now am.
An ex-con is released from prison and, on his way to reunite with the woman he loved before his sentence, stumbles onto the scene of a car accident that has just killed the newly appointed sheriff of a small Pennsylvania town called Banshee. He takes the man's identity. He takes his job. 4 seasons total, and he spends every one of them trying to survive the consequences of that decision, while the criminal underworld he actually belongs to keeps finding him anyway. Antony Starr, years before he became known worldwide as Homelander in The Boys, carries this entire series with a magnetic, dangerous charisma that makes you understand exactly why he eventually got cast as one of television's great villains. The fight choreography in this show is some of the best put on television. Long, brutal, bone-crunching sequences filmed with real clarity and real physical stakes, in a genre where most shows cut away from violence far too quickly to let it actually land. Banshee knows exactly what kind of show it is. It executes it with total confidence. Genre television at its most purely entertaining, elevated by a cast that works well above what the pulp premise strictly requires. Ridiculous, bloody, enormously entertaining. The perfect way to start this list. Number 14. Love and Death. Candy Montgomery, a Texas housewife in the late 1970s, grows increasingly restless with her quiet suburban life. She begins an affair with her best friend's husband. The wife finds out, and she killed her with an axe, striking her 41 times.
I'm very attracted to you.
Oh.
Would you be interested in having an affair?
David E. Kelley created this limited series, and what makes it genuinely gripping is its patience. The first several episodes are spent almost entirely on the mundane, specific texture of small-town Texan suburban life. Church volleyball, affairs conducted with careful discretion, the particular loneliness of a marriage that has quietly gone flat. Elizabeth Olsen plays Candy with a controlled, unsettling normalcy, never tipping her hand about what she's capable of, right up until the film-quality violence of the murder scene itself, filmed with a brutal, unflinching intensity that the show's slow build makes land even harder. Jesse Plemons, as Candy's husband, gives his usual, quietly devastating supporting work. The trial, when it arrives, becomes a genuine examination of self-defense claims, the specifics of the axe murder itself, and the unsettling gap between a community's image of a person and what they're actually capable of. A meticulously researched true crime series that resists sensationalism in favor of something considerably more disturbing. Total ordinariness, right up until it wasn't. Number 13. Bates Motel. Before Norman Bates became the man in Psycho, he was a teenager, living with his mother, running a motel, trying to be normal in a town that, it turns out, has very little interest in normalcy.
We own a motel, Norman Bates. This is our chance to start over. It's all gonna be good. You'll see.
Bates Motel is a prequel nobody strictly needed, and almost everybody who watched it ended up loving considerably more than they expected to. 5 seasons total. Vera Farmiga plays Norma Bates, reimagined here not as a corpse or a voice in Norman's head, but as a complicated, loving, deeply damaged woman whose relationship with her son is the show's entire emotional engine. Freddie Highmore plays Norman across all 5 seasons, tracking his slow, devastating slide from anxious teenager to the man audiences already know he becomes. What makes the show work is the specificity of that relationship. Norma and Norman aren't simply mother and son, they're the only 2 people either of them fully trusts, in a way that curdles, slowly and then completely, into something the show never lets you look away from. The mystery of the weak plotting in the early seasons is solid, but not the reason to watch. The reason to watch is 2 performances building, over 5 years, toward an ending that reframes the original film entirely. A prequel that earned its own identity, underseen relative to how good it actually is. Number 12. The Deuce. Times Square, New York, in the early 1970s. The pornography industry is about to become legal, visible, and enormously profitable. And the people already working the streets are about to be swept up in that transformation.
What's your dream? What is it about the big city that brought you here?
I meant it when I said you could make good money in this town.
David Simon and George Pelecanos created this, the same team behind The Wire, and The Deuce applies that same patient, systems-level storytelling to an industry most television refuses to examine with any seriousness. Across all 3 seasons, spanning into the 1980s, the show tracks the corporatization of sex work, the AIDS crisis, and the specific human cost of an industry built entirely around other people's profit. James Franco plays twin brothers, one a small-time hustler and bar manager, the other struggling with a gambling addiction, while Maggie Gyllenhaal plays a sex worker who becomes one of the first performers to gain real creative control over the films she appears in. This is one of those rare shows where the characters feel so real that by the time it's over, you genuinely miss them. And that finale, it had me crying like a baby. Gritty, meticulously researched, and one of David Simon's most underrated achievements. Number 11. The Capture. A British soldier is caught, on camera, assaulting a woman on a London street. The footage is damning, clear, undeniable. Except he says he didn't do it, and the detective investigating the case starts finding small, specific inconsistencies in footage that shouldn't have any.
A woman's missing. And Sean Emery is our suspect.
Ben Chenan created The Capture, and across 3 seasons, he builds one of the sharpest surveillance state conspiracy thrillers British television has produced. A show that takes seriously the specific, modern terror of a world in which video evidence, the thing we've been trained to trust completely, can be manufactured with enough resources and enough motive. Holiday Granger plays Detective Sergeant Rachel Carey, with a controlled, mounting paranoia as she realizes the case she's building sits on top of technology and institutional actors far beyond her clearance level. Callum Turner plays the accused soldier with a genuine destabilizing uncertainty. Is he lying, or has he genuinely been framed by something he cannot begin to explain? What elevates The Capture above a standard conspiracy thriller is its specificity about how the manipulation actually works. Deepfake technology, CCTV networks, intelligence agencies with their own agendas, all woven together with a technical plausibility that makes the show's central paranoia feel less like fiction and more like an early warning. Genuinely tense, genuinely smart, and largely unseen outside the UK. Number 10. Mr Inbetween. Right, gear change, because this one is very funny, very dark, and entirely unlike anything else on this list.
Do you think that you've got an anger problem?
Ray Shoesmith is a hitman. He's also a devoted single father, a loyal friend, a man navigating a new relationship with genuine tenderness, and someone who will, without changing his tone of voice, break another man's fingers if the situation calls for it. Scott Ryan created and stars in Mr Inbetween, adapted from his own earlier short film. And across 3 seasons, a complete and satisfying run, he built a genuinely singular tonal achievement. A show that moves between domestic comedy and shocking violence within the same scene, without ever signaling the shift. Because for Ray, there simply isn't a shift. Both things are just Tuesday. Ryan's performance is the reason this works. He plays Ray with a flat, understated normalcy that makes the violence, when it arrives, land with real force, precisely because nothing about his demeanor prepared you for it. The relationship with his daughter is played with genuine warmth. The relationship with his terminally ill brother carries real, unforced grief. This is Australian television at its sharpest. Deadpan, morally unbothered, and considerably funnier than a show about a hitman has any right to be. Criminally under-discussed outside the small, devoted audience that found it. Number 9. Disclaimer.
They say that destiny knocks at the door. That is not true.
Cate Blanchett plays Catherine Ravenscroft, a celebrated documentary journalist who receives a novel in the mail that appears to recount, in devastating detail, an affair she had 20 years earlier, one that ended in a tragedy she has never told anyone about. Someone knows, and they've turned it into a book. Alfonso Cuarón wrote and directed this limited series from Renee Knight's novel. 7 episodes, one complete and self-contained story. And what he builds is a masterclass in unreliable narration. The story of what actually happened, told and retold from different perspectives, each version recontextualizing what came before, until the audience's certainty about who is telling the truth becomes genuinely, deliberately unstable. Cate Blanchett gives one of the finest performances of her career, a woman whose composed public persona is dismantled piece by piece, in a performance that asks you to reconsider your own judgment of her multiple times across the series. Visually stunning, structurally audacious, and a genuine event in television when it premiered, that somehow still hasn't reached the audience its ambition deserves. Number 8. Patriot.
I'm not going to pass this urine test. So I need yours. It's not just me. The country. The USA needs my pee. Yeah.
A CIA intelligence officer is given a mission to stop Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons. To do it, he has to take a job at a mid-level industrial piping company in Milwaukee, learn everything about flow dynamics and pipe fittings, and wait months for a work trip to Luxembourg, where he can make a covert handoff. He also just accidentally killed an innocent housekeeper on his previous mission, and copes with the guilt by writing extremely specific, extremely revealing folk songs about it, and performing them unprompted to strangers. Michael Dorman plays John Tavner, singing every song himself, and creator Stephen Conrad, the screenwriter behind The Pursuit of Happiness and The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, built something almost impossible to categorize. It's a spy thriller, it's a family drama, it's a deadpan comedy about industrial piping, all three, simultaneously, without ever undercutting any of them. 2 seasons, 18 episodes. Amazon quietly canceled it, despite a 100% critic score on its 2nd season, and it remains one of the most purely original spy dramas ever made for television. Number 7. Devs.
The last time I saw him, he was headed toward Devs, and then he disappears. Something bad happened to him.
A software engineer at a quantum computing company watches her boyfriend walk into the company's most secretive division on his first day. He never comes back out. The company says there was an accident. She does not believe them. Alex Garland wrote and directed all 8 episodes of Devs himself, a complete self-contained miniseries. And what elevates it above a corporate conspiracy thriller is a level of visual and philosophical ambition that few television productions attempt, let alone achieve. The Devs facility itself, a glass structure suspended in the middle of a redwood forest, gold-lit, silent, watched over by an enormous statue of a child, is one of the most striking pieces of production design in recent television. Sonoya Mizuno plays Lily Chan, the engineer investigating her boyfriend's disappearance, and the performance she gives is a masterclass in controlled, escalating dread. Nick Offerman, cast dramatically against his usual comedic type, plays the company's founder with a quiet, unsettling intensity that's one of the best performances of his career. 8 episodes. One complete, fully realized idea, executed with a visual confidence that deserved a considerably larger audience than it found. One of the most purely cinematic pieces of television made in the last 5 years. Number 6. Halt and Catch Fire. A visionary, morally questionable tech entrepreneur convinces a hardware engineer and a brilliant programmer to help him reverse engineer an IBM computer in 1983 Texas, kickstarting a journey through the entire early history of personal computing, the internet, and gaming. Lee Pace, Scoot McNairy, Mackenzie Davis, and Carrie Bechet lead this, and the show's greatest trick is how completely it transforms across its 4 seasons. What starts as a Mad Men-adjacent corporate drama about hardware becomes, by its final season, one of the most moving depictions of friendship and creative partnership ever put on television. Halt and Catch Fire was initially marketed and reviewed as a Mad Men clone set in tech, and that comparison did the show real damage early on. What it actually became, particularly through the relationship between Cameron and Donna, played by Mackenzie Davis and Carrie Bechet, is one of the most nuanced, most emotionally rich explorations of female friendship, professional rivalry, and creative partnership on television. The show's final season, largely freed from the expectations that hampered its first, is genuinely one of the most quietly devastating final seasons any drama has ever produced. Slow to start, absolutely worth the patience. One of the great It Gets Better recommendations in television. Number 5. Rectify. I need you to sit with this one differently than anything else on this list.
Remember, just because he's getting out doesn't mean this thing is over yet.
Your brother moving back here?
I don't know.
Aden Young plays Daniel Holden, released from death row after 19 years, following the discovery of DNA evidence that casts serious doubt on his conviction for the rape and murder of his teenage girlfriend. He returns to his small Georgia hometown, to a family that has spent 2 decades either fighting for his innocence or quietly believing he's guilty. Here's what makes Rectify unlike any other show about wrongful conviction. It has almost no interest in courtroom drama or investigative procedure. It is entirely, exclusively interested in what 19 years of death row does to a human mind, and what it's like to be released into a world that moved on entirely without you, carrying trauma that nobody around you can fully understand or is even willing to try to. Aden Young's performance is one of the quietest, most devastating pieces of acting I have ever seen on television. A man relearning how to simply exist in the world, moment by moment, scene by scene. Rectify never received the audience its reputation deserved. Critics who found it called it one of the finest American dramas of the decade. It asks for patience. It repays that patience completely. Number 4. Counterpart.
Have I done something wrong?
Someone's walked in from the other side.
The other side,
Whatever you do, don't panic.
Hi, Howard.
A low-level UN employee discovers that his mundane office job is actually a front for something extraordinary. A portal to a parallel version of Earth created decades earlier by an experiment gone wrong. On the other side, another version of himself. Colder, more capable, living a completely different life. J.K. Simmons plays both versions, the meek bureaucrat and his ruthless counterpart, in a dual performance that critics consistently praised as one of the finest of his career. Justin Marks created Counterpart, and across 2 complete seasons, what elevates it above a clever premise is Simmons's performance. Genuinely, remarkably, 2 completely distinguishable characters, built entirely through posture, cadence, and a specific quality of internal weariness that differs completely between the 2 Howards, despite an identical face. The espionage plotting is genuinely tight, a Cold War between 2 versions of the same world, populated by other doubled characters, whose divergent choices ripple outward in ways the show tracks with real intelligence. One of the most purely inventive spy thrillers of the last decade, anchored by a performance that deserved considerably more awards attention than it received. Number 3. The Knick. Steven Soderbergh directed every single episode of this series himself, writing, directing, shooting, and editing under a pseudonym. And what he built is one of the most technically extraordinary pieces of television ever produced.
We live in a time of endless possibility.
Clive Owen plays Dr. John Thackeray, a brilliant, deeply flawed surgeon at New York's Knickerbocker Hospital in 1900. pioneering surgical techniques that will eventually become standard medical practice, while privately battling a severe cocaine addiction that the show never softens or excuses. Here's what makes the Knick genuinely remarkable. Soderbergh shoots this series with handheld, roving cameras and an anachronistic electronic score by Cliff Martinez that should clash completely with a period setting, and instead makes the show feel urgent and alive, in a way most historical dramas never achieve. The surgical sequences are filmed with a graphic, unflinching realism that makes clear exactly how brutal and uncertain medicine actually was at the turn of the century. The show is also genuinely serious about the racism of its era, following a black surgeon, played by André Holland, denied opportunities and respect his skill clearly warrants, in storylines that never soften the institutional cruelty he faces. 2 seasons. Soderbergh has said a third was planned and never made. What exists is a genuine masterpiece that far too few people have seen. Number 2, The Americans.
This work can be too much for people.
They tell us what to do and we do it. That's how it works.
Philip and Elizabeth Jennings are not Russian spies.
What?
Kerry Russell and Matthew Rhys play Elizabeth and Philip Jennings, 2 Soviet KGB agents embedded so deeply in American suburban life during the 1980s that even their own children have no idea who their parents actually are, running espionage operations, recruiting assets, and occasionally killing people, all while maintaining the appearance of an ordinary American marriage. Created by former CIA officer Joe Weisberg, this series is, by broad critical consensus, one of the finest dramas ever produced for American television. A show that never received the mainstream cultural conversation of its contemporaries, despite being, by many critics' estimation, just as good or better. Here's what makes The Americans extraordinary. The show is fundamentally a marriage drama, wearing an espionage thriller's clothing. Elizabeth and Philip's ideological commitment to their mission, and the toll that commitment takes on their actual relationship, their children, and their own sense of who they are after decades of performance, is handled with a nuance that most prestige dramas never attempt. Kerry Russell and Matthew Rhys are both extraordinary, and the show's final season delivers one of the most quietly devastating series finales in television history, earned by 6 years of patient, exacting character work. If you've somehow missed this, it belongs in the same conversation as the shows everyone already recommends. It simply never got invited. Number 1, Pachinko. Based on Min Jin Lee's best-selling novel, this series spans 4 generations of a Korean family, moving between 1910s colonial Korea, wartime Japan, and 1980s New York, following the same family across nearly a century of displacement, discrimination, and quiet, hard-won survival.
아가 생길 기다. 꼭 버티낼 기다. 반드시 헤쳐나갈 기다.
Young Yoo-jung plays the elderly version of Sunja, the family's matriarch, while Kim Min-ha plays her younger self, navigating a forbidden pregnancy in occupied Korea that sets the entire multi-generational story in motion. Soo Hugh created this series, and what she and her directors built across 2 seasons is one of the most visually extraordinary, most structurally ambitious pieces of television made in years. The show moves fluidly between Korean, Japanese, and English, subtitled in different colors depending on which language is being spoken. A small formal choice that carries enormous emotional weight for anyone who has lived between languages and cultures. The opening title sequence alone, the entire cast dancing joyfully to a 1968 pop song, has become one of the most beloved and widely discussed moments in recent television. Critics have called it one of the finest family sagas ever produced for the screen, a story about displacement, resilience, and the specific cost of survival across generations who never fully know what the previous one sacrificed for them. This is not just the best hidden gem on this list, it is one of the finest pieces of television made in the last few years, in any country, in any language. If you haven't watched this yet, do yourself a favor. Watch it tonight. That's the end of today's list. 15 series, all of them extraordinary, all of them waiting to be discovered. Now, I want to hear from you. How many of these have you already watched? Which ones were brand new discoveries? And if there's an underrated hidden gem that deserves a spot on this list, drop it in the comments. I read and respond to every single one. And if you genuinely like the video, please like, subscribe, and swipe left on the comments and hype this video. It really helps a small channel like mine grow. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.